Welcome back, everyone, to From the Stands College Football Show. It is week 8 of the season here. We are past the halfway point, boys. Andy, your team looks better and better every week. How are you feeling?
We're on top of the world. Unfortunately, it's a bye week, but we feel damn good about ourselves about dominating the Minnesota Golden Gophers last week. Chase Brown had 40 carries, folks. 41, excuse me. 41 carries, 181 yards, 3 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown. He touched the ball more times than Minnesota had total plays. The defense looked out of this world. One of the best defenses in the country. We're up to number 18 now, and one of the few teams with a path to the college football playoff. I'm ready to get my heart broken, folks. I'm ready, but it's been a fucking awesome season so far. And there were a lot of other great games last weekend, just besides Minnesota and Illinois, that I'm excited to get to in the recap. But I'm feeling good.
Love it. Tom, how are you feeling?
The complete opposite of Andy. I'm not feeling good. My team is 3-3, and that is not the expectation at the University of Notre Dame. The expectation is higher. I'm disappointed. I'm frustrated. I'm angered, and I have nothing else to say, Brian. Thank you for having me.
Tommy, I'm sorry. It's growing pains. It's growing pains under Freeman. You guys will get back to it. That will move us into our weekly recap. Andy, we'll start with you because you seem to have a lot of games that you want to talk about here.
Dude, I mean, where do we start? I think we go, at least for me, it's Alabama, Tennessee. 52-49, an instant classic, a game-winning kick in Knoxville that looked like it had zero business going over the crossbar, but it sneaks in. I mean, if you just take a peek at what these two quarterbacks were able to do, Hendon Hooker, 21 for 30, 385 yards, 5 touchdowns. But I think the real story is Hyatt, the receiver, 6 receptions, 207 yards, and 5 scores. So every single touchdown pass was to Mr. Hyatt. Bryce Young did not look too bad himself. Alabama was right there in this game. They miss a wide right field goal. 455 yards on 35 completions, 2 tutties. Really just solid game all around. It's a game we're not going to forget for quite a while, whether it's, who I don't even know when the last time they beat Alabama was. And then you had the field storing. They're taking the goalposts down. Just one more game I wanted to highlight was TCU's comeback over Oklahoma State. I think with this game, TCU's proved, at least to me, I think we talked about this last week, that they are the best team in the Big 12. I do still think Oklahoma State's a really good ball club, and TCU sneaks out 43-40 in a double overtime game. But again, Max Duggan just continues to impress me every week. 256 yards, 2 scores, adds 57 yards on the ground, and a touchdown there. He can beat you both ways. The defense looks pretty good. I know it's it's hard to say that after they just gave up 40 points, but I don't know. I like the Horned Frogs. So those are 2 games that stuck out to me this week.
All right, Tom, what was your most exciting games of the week here?
Like Andy said, Tennessee, I picked them on the show last week. Money line straight up. Yeah, high up to 5 touchdowns, ending a 15-game drought against Alabama, which was incredible. I'm going to give Brian some credit. Number 20, Utah, upsetting USC 43-42. Tight end Dalton Kincaid had 16 catches. Listen, guys, 16 catches, 234 receiving yards, and a touchdown. Since when in the world does a tight end have 234 receiving yards in a game? That is the best performance that I have seen this past decade of any tight end in college football, man. Um, I'd like to unapologize to Spencer Sanders. You're trash again. Spencer Sanders had more incompletions than completions, despite his team somehow still scoring 40 points. I think that's why Andy said credit to the TCU defense because they made Spencer Sanders look like the Spencer Sanders that we all know. And then lastly, in my home state, Syracuse beating NC State at home to improve to 6-0. Yes, Devin Leary's out for the season for the Wolfpack, but the Syracuse Orange live to fight another day. They remain unbeaten.
Yeah, I think you guys covered pretty much all the big games that are on my radar. I mean, I'll add in, I know Andy talked about it at the beginning, but Illinois getting that big win, and now officially #1 across the board in the nation in defense in just about every single category that exists. So they're definitely going to be an interesting team to watch going forward. Obviously, the Tennessee game, like you said, Andy, instant classic. That was an incredible game to watch. Called them out, both of them, because I thought the most interesting thing was the penalties on both sides. Tennessee got their shit together under Heupel, which he didn't do at UCF. Alabama, on the other hand, just running wild, dirty laundry all over the field. They are now officially the most penalized team in the entire nation after those 16 penalties. So I don't know what's going on. This is like the most undisciplined team I've ever seen Saban have. So I don't know. I think their season might be over. So they're on the card this week. We'll see what I decide if I want to pick them this week or not. And then Utah, like you said, Kincaid with those 16 receptions. There's a point late in the game where he got injured, and it looked like it was kind of bad. And I thought, all right, USC is gonna win this game because he was doing everything for them. But yeah, he came back in, caught another like 3 balls, I think, and Utah did go on to win the game. So those are the ones that caught my eye. There's pretty much on everybody's eye. So we'll move into our first segment, and that is bounce back. All 4 of these teams suffered a major loss and a big blow to their CFP hopes. So I want to know who you guys think needs their next win the most out of these 4 teams. We have Alabama obviously falling to Tennessee, Oklahoma State, who just lost to TCU, Penn State, who got clobbered by Michigan, and USC, who fell to Utah, making Caleb Williams cry a little bit after the game. Tom, we'll start with you. Who needs to win their next game the most here?
Well, it's not USC since they're on a bye week. I think next week though, you could argue it's them, but it's out. It's clearly Alabama. They were on the ropes against Texas, and now they lose to Tennessee. Now they have number 24 Mississippi State this week, and I believe they are at home for that game, Alabama. But Will Rogers is no slouch. He's thrown 23 touchdowns this season. He's absolutely insane. And I just think they have to win the most because of the conference that they're in and how competitive it is. Because, yes, you have Georgia, you have Tennessee. I mean, it's going to be a tough road for them to make the college football playoff if they don't win this game.
All right, Andy, which of these 4 is your pick?
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree with Tom. I do want to argue for Oklahoma State a little bit as well. I think he's absolutely right. Bama has to win out. I think all of these teams, if they want any shot, have to win out. Do I think Penn State's going to? No. They kind of really showed who they were this past Saturday. But Oklahoma State, their next game is against, I believe, number 11 Texas. That's a huge game. That's a resume builder. The committee, when it's all said and done, they're going to come back and look at, or they're at least supposed to, your strength of schedule. Who did you play? And I think a win over a highly ranked Texas team would go a long way if Oklahoma State is able to run the table and win out. But I mean, I can't disagree with anything Tom said about Bama either, because the SEC is so tough that, it could be, is it going to be Tennessee now? Is it going to be Georgia? Is Alabama going to sneak in? I mean, it looks like a 3-team race in the Big Ten as well. Maybe 4 if we throw Illinois in there.
Throw them in, yeah.
Throw them in. I mean, favorites in the West, no big deal except for the fact that it is. But yeah, man, I think bottom line, all of these teams need to win if they want to stay alive. But if I had to say who's got to do it the most, I think Tom's right in Alabama.
Yeah, I'm gonna go opposite. I kind of agree, but I'm gonna make a bit of a hot take here. I think Alabama's season is done. Um, Obviously, like you said, all of these teams need to win their next game, but the way that this team is behaving and the way the defense just looks so dysfunctional, I think there is a 90% chance they lose at least one more game in the regular season. They still have a huge matchup against Ole Miss coming later in the season, and honestly, I think after watching that Tennessee game, I think Ole Miss is the better, more disciplined team, which is the most ridiculous thing to say about a Saban team going up against Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin, by the way, who was rooting for Tennessee all weekend, which was a fun watch. Oklahoma State, yeah, they play Texas. They're on our card this week. They do need a win as well if they want their hopes to stay alive. But I think in the Big 12, TCU looks like by far the best team. I mean, I would put Texas up there, but they've got those 2 losses without Ewers. So, I mean, I don't know if they're going to be able to squeeze in to the conference championship game. So, I mean, if you've already lost to the favorite in your conference, I think your time might be kind of up. So, I kind of want to say Oklahoma State, but I think their time is done as well. And Penn State, I just don't think they're good enough. They do need the win, but they just got clobbered by Michigan. I think they're out of the Big Ten race. For me, it is USC because they're on a bye week. They have to sit with that big loss, that overtime loss to who. I mean, UCLA is up there, but Utah is probably one of the better teams that they're gonna have to go against all season. They play a lowly Arizona. They need to absolutely smash them if they want to get back into the committee's eyes and under their good graces. They need to be perfect for the rest of the season if they want a shot at the playoff going forward. We saw how much that loss meant. Like I said, Caleb Williams crying after the game. They know when you're in the Pac-12, it needs to be picture perfect because committee doesn't really rate the Pac-12 as highly as a lot of those other P5 conferences. So I'm picking the Trojans here for bounce back. Moving into our next segment, we're doing our midseason Heisman. We did this in September last year, moving it a little bit to October because September's a little bit early. And now we have some other dark horse names in it because we did that like Chase Brown. Andy, is Chase Brown your midseason Heisman here, or do you have some other picks?
I mean, who the hell else is it? He's leading in all-purpose yards, rush yards. The most rushes for 10-plus yards in the country. He has been absolutely amazing. He is my Heisman frontrunner. Put him in. Put him in.
If he can't pull it off, do you have any backups, or is he your far and away? Give it to the man.
I mean, he is my far and away give it to him at this point of the year. But I mean, if it's not him, it'll be a quarterback from one of the top schools, like probably. I mean, I could see Hendon Hooker winning it. I wouldn't mind a Hendon Hooker Heisman. I'd like to see how well Bryce Young keeps playing. I'm sure he'll put himself into the conversation. I've seen Drake May put in the conversation for some reason. Blake Corum from Michigan has had a really solid year. He's in the combo as well. But I mean, I'm all in on Chase Brown or bust.
I love it. I love it. Tom, you heard the name Corum there. I know you hate Michigan, but you do like Corum. Is he your front runner, or who do you got?
He's my number 2 right now. My number 1 is Hendon Hooker. 70% completion percentage, 1,800 yards, 15 touchdowns, just 1 pick and 3 rushing touchdowns, and you add a win against Alabama on your resume, and you score 52 points against their defense. Hendon Hooker is clearly my front runner for the Heisman Trophy. I mean, they are playing the SEC right now real tough, and they're going to be a tough team to keep out of the college football playoff if they continue to register impactful wins like this. Blake Corum is my number 2. He leads the nation with 13 rushing touchdowns, and he's carrying this Michigan offense. All due respect to J.J. McCarthy, he's been an insane upgrade over Cade McNamara, but Blake Corum is the alpha in this offense, right? He's averaging over 6 yards a carry, and fun fact, he's rushed for over 124 yards or more in each of his last 5 games. So he's my runner-up, and I do think one person we haven't mentioned yet that could possibly enter the discussion at some point is Jameer Gibbs from Alabama. My wild card that's way out there, Andy dropped his name, and I actually think he does deserve to be mentioned as a candidate is Drake May. What he was able to do last week when the game was on the line, um, third and long, fourth and long, 24 touchdown passes, 70% completion percentage. I get it. You're playing in the ACC. It's not as competitive as, the Big Ten or the SEC. But at the end of the day, um, Drake May's thrown for a lot of yards after, he lost several of his offensive linemen to the draft this past season. So that offensive line has been rebuilt. And, you know, I think he deserves to be in there. But my top two are Hooker, followed by Corum.
Yeah, I mean, you guys pretty much covered my top picks as well. I think C.J. Stroud, things have kind of gone quiet just because Ohio State's just churning along, not doing anything super special, but they haven't faltered really in any way. So he has kind of been a little bit quiet, and yeah, Hendon Hooker, for me after that game, Alabama is taking the top spot. That was, we talk about Heisman moments all the time. Manziel had a few. If you want to win, you have to have games like that against top competition. And the guy throws for 70%, 5 touchdowns. Did have an interception in that game, but Alabama's defense is still pretty good. So that's a phenomenal performance to me. They played three ranked opponents in a row, and he's just diced them up. One interception in the last 5 games. I have Corum down at 3 for me. Tommy pretty much covered him well, but I have to slide in a little bit of a dark horse here for me, and Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't know what I have with UCLA guys. I thought Charbonnet, I had him in as my dark horse last year. He's a little bit too young. Couldn't pull it off to get to New York. But yeah, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, been one of the best QBs in the entire nation, leads the nation in completion percentage, and he has like fourth best QB rating of everyone in the nation. So he has to rattle off 4 ranked wins. They play Oregon this week. That's on our card for the game day. If he gets a win here, he's going to have 2 top 15 wins under his belt, and he's got 2 more on the card, which I think UCLA somehow under this Chip Kelly offense can't pull off. So if he ends up with 4 top 15 wins, to me, that's going to look really great on his resume. And I think at the very least, he for sure gets to New York. So I'm going with Dorian Thompson-Robinson in that second slot behind Hendon Hooker. And speaking of our card, we're going to get into our shots and chasers, your roadmap to game day. And we'll start off in the noon slot. We have Clemson taking on Syracuse. 2 ranked wins, 2 orange teams here as we get into the fall. Andy, we'll start with you. You stole Syracuse's quarterback, but they're still doing pretty well. Who wins this game?
Oh, Tommy. I love Tommy. He is currently on pace to break the Illinois record for completion percentage in a single season, I believe. So when I look at this game, I mean, we see 2 elite defenses so far. And we see 2 offenses that, are averaging 400 plus yards a game as well. For me, this being at Clemson is a big advantage for the Tigers. And it feels like another game that they pull out at home. I really do hope I'm wrong. I hope Syracuse marches in and Garrett Schrader runs for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns while throwing for 200 and 2 more touchdowns. I just don't know if I see that happening. It is another outstanding Clemson defensive line that just has dudes that just seemingly come out of nowhere. But if we look, Syracuse has performed as the better defense so far this year. So Ugalele and the Tigers offense are going to have their hands full as well. The Syracuse has only given up 286 total yards a game, only 173 through the air, and have only allowed 13.2 points per game so far on the season. I am picking Clemson to win, but I think it's going to be a close one.
All right, Tom.
Yeah, that 13.5 line is a little too much for
Too
me.
many points. Too many
Yeah.
points.
Look, back to the defenses, right? Each defense surrenders under 20 points per game. The identity of Clemson's defense falls under Miles Murphy and Brian Brees up front, two future first round NFL draft picks. They stuff the run very well. And what does Syracuse do well? Run the dang ball. Sean Tucker, 644 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Garrett Schrader, he can throw, but he can also run. He has 5 touchdowns on the ground. So those are two guys you have to account for defensively. Arande Gadsden the second, 5 receiving touchdowns and over 500 receiving yards. That's a weapon for Schrader that Clemson's going to have to account for. DJ, as much as we like to criticize him, that touchdown to interception ratio, 17 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions all season long. Will Shipley has been a beast, 8 tutties, having 6 yards on average per carry. And they have a plethora of receivers that they throw to. Their leading receiver in yards is Antonio Williams. They have Bo Collins, who has 5 touchdown catches, and their two top tight ends combined, Jake Brenningstool and Davis Allen, have 7 total touchdowns. Clemson's winning this one at home, and as much as we hate to say this, boys, looking ahead at their schedule, I know they play South Carolina. Their toughest test might be at Notre Dame next week. And we see how Notre Dame has been playing. They're the type of team this season that could beat a Clemson but lose to a Boston College. Right now, Clemson, if they beat Notre Dame next week and Syracuse this weekend, they might have a clear path to the college football playoff. They really might. And I think they're going to win this game and continue to prove people wrong this season.
Yeah, this is. I mean, I appreciate what Syracuse has done this season. They're 5-7 last season. Tommy DeVito gets the boot, moves to Illinois, but here they are at 7-0 under Dino Babers. So, hats off to them and how they've performed this season so far. A win this week would give Syracuse its best start since 1987. That is the same year that Full House debuted. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be a full house for sure in Death Valley. And like you said, Andy, the home field advantage I think is gonna give me the edge here for Clemson, because I think this game is more even than the bookmakers are making it seem. 13.5 seems, I don't know. It's a little too much spice on the line there for me. So I would probably take Syracuse there, but I think Clemson, they're a hardened team. They know what it takes to get it done. They've been there before. They won 37 straight conference games at home. So this is going to be a really difficult environment for Syracuse, for sure. Their toughest test of the year. I think both teams are pretty balanced, but I have to give the edge here to Clemson. I agree with what Tom said earlier, that we can shit on Spencer Sanders again, but I'm finding it hard to shit on DJ right now. I think he's kind of dialed it in a little bit better. So I think Clemson has a slight edge here, and I'm going with the Tigers. In our chaser slot, we have a little bit of G5 action. SMU hosting ranked Cincinnati. Tom, we'll start with you on this one. Cincy going to hold it together, or can the Mustangs pull an upset here?
So the Bearcats have won every game since the Arkansas season opener, right? They're 5-1. They're favored by 3.5 on the road at the Mustangs, who are a 500 team. But what do the Mustangs have that presents challenges for the Bearcats? Tanner Mordecai. The dude is a stud. He throws for a lot of yards. I hate to give teams participation points, but they do own an 8-point loss to TCU. They were competitive in that game. Rashee Rice, 4 touchdown receptions on the season and 760 receiving yards. But the Bearcats quarterback, Ben Bryant, has been improving since week 1. He has been a nice addition. Again, replacing Desmond Ridder was tough for them. They went through some growing pains. Every time a quarterback graduates, guys, we have to realize if you're not Alabama or a team like that, your team is going to take a little bit of a dip the following season. And what has Cincinnati done? Yet again, they've relied on their run game. Charles McClelland, 500 rushing yards, 5 touchdowns. Corey Keimer, 5 rushing touchdowns. and they have a good replacement for Alec Pierce this year in Tyler Scott. I like him a lot. Um, this is an alarming stat: 28 catches for 500 yards and 6 touchdown receptions. Who the hell has 28 catches for 500 yards? That's a hard stat to find. And defensively, the Bearcats are led by Ivan Pace Jr., 5 sacks, 62 tackles. Give me the Bearcats on the road and to cover that spread as well.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I agree with Tom here. I'm going to go with Cincinnati. I think Cincinnati has a great opportunity to do a lot of damage to this SMU defense on the ground. This is an SMU defense that has given up over 200 yards a game on the ground. But what they do well is offensively. They're over 350 pass yards a game. That's top 10 in the country. 500 total yards of offense a game. So Cincinnati's going to have their hands full defensively. But I do like what Tom said about Brent Bryant. He seems to me that he's kind of steadily improved each week. It seems to be more comfortable with everything now. And I don't see Cincinnati losing this game. I like them to go on the road. I do like them to cover as well. I think we see a big game from them on the ground. I think they'll be able to pick their spots and attack the Mustang defense pretty well.
Yeah, Cincinnati lost a lot of firepower on both sides of the ball. We talked ad nauseum about both, their offensive weapons in Ritter and Ford, and their defense with, maybe one of the best secondaries in all of college football. So they did lose a lot. Ben Bryant, like you said, Tom, he has been improving. It's definitely not Ritter numbers or anything, but it's enough to keep the ship steady. But this game has major implications for the G5. I know we're not talking CFP again for Cincinnati, but in terms of New Year's Six Bowls, Cincinnati is the only team really that has a shot left in the entire G5. James Madison was crawling up the rankings. They could have been a Cinderella, but they took a loss last week. So Cincinnati really needs this win if they want to get to that New Year's Six Bowl game. They're second in the nation in sacks per game. That's what I love to see from them. Their secondary was the star of the show last year. This time it's their D-line. 3.8 sacks per game. So, that can really force Mordecai into some mistakes here. And speaking of his mistakes, he has struggled for the Mustang a bit in the last couple weeks. He's usually pretty solid, but he's thrown at least an interception in the last four of the last 5 games. Not a great showing from him at all. And he played abysmally against UCF, a game I watched. And I'll tell you what, our secondary is not as good as Cincinnati's. So if he's only putting up 19 points against us, I think he's going to struggle here against this Cincinnati offense. The Mustangs' run game, not very potent. 0 rushers with more than 300 yards. There's 160 rushers in the nation with at least 300 yards. It's not too much to ask for, guys. But SMU has 0 of them. So if they want a shot, they really need to rely on Mordecai making no mistakes here. So they better hope that he pulls out some 2021 Tanner Mordecai stats for this game. But I don't think he's going to do it. And I am taking the Bearcats here as well. Moving into 3:30, we have a Pac-12 game. I said UCLA has a tough schedule. They're playing Oregon this week. Both teams ranked. This is in Autzen, home for Oregon. Tom, we'll start with you. Who's taking this one?
So Oregon's favored by 6, and they're at home, and they're hosting undefeated UCLA, which is insane to say. Thompson Robinson, 19 total touchdowns on the season, 15 through the air, 4 on the ground. Again, Brian, your dark horse for Heisman. Yeah, he deserves that recognition. I also think what's helping him is a solid run game with Zach Charbonnet, averaging over 7 yards per carry. He's been outstanding. He has good vision and good instincts behind a solid offensive line, and Jake Bobo has been a security blanket for him with 5 touchdown receptions. And Laitu Laitu, that linebacker, is insane. Do you see he covers sideline to sideline incredibly well? 6.5 sacks. Their wins over Washington and Utah, though, were both at home. Keep that in mind when evaluating this game. They are on the road against Oregon. We love to shit on Bo Nix, but I'll tell you, Bo Nix has improved the last week or so. 8 rushing touchdowns for Knicks on the season. He is a dual threat quarterback. Troy Franklin, good receiver. Terrence Ferguson, tight end, leads the team with 4 touchdowns. And DJ Johnson, their linebacker, 4 sacks through 6 games. This is going to be a very, very competitive game. Oregon is favored by 6 for a reason, guys. I am rolling with the Ducks to unseat UCLA as a college football playoff contender.
All right, Andy. Is that upset coming or no?
Ooh. I know Otson's going to be rocking. It is going to be a madhouse in there. Bo Nix is another guy that we have repeatedly trashed on this show, just to an incredible amount. And he's going to have to prove it. I do think DTR has had the better season of the two so far. UCLA yet to lose. And I'm going to take them to win. I think their perfect season keeps going. I love Oregon. It's an awesome place. If you ever get the chance to go visit Eugene, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. But I just think UCLA is going to come up with like some last second scary shit and take this game. I don't know. I just have the gut feeling that UCLA wins this game. I bet against them all season. And quite frankly, I'm tired of losing when I bet against them.
Yeah. I mean, this game has massive implications for the Pac-12 if they want that CFP shot. Like I said, the committee, and I think most of the general public doesn't really give them a fair shake because the conference past, decade-ish has been a little bit weaker than the other P5 conferences. So, yeah, Oregon already has that loss. If they win this game, they could get the boot. If there's slightly worse teams who do go undefeated, even though they get this ranked win over UCLA. So, UCLA is under the most pressure here. Their games have been really, really close all season long. Yeah, they're scoring over 40 points a game, but the defense is allowing over 30 points a game. So is this sort of, can we outlast you all season long? Can they do it again? Yeah, I do think so. I'm going to take UCLA here. Both defenses have been, phenomenal in the rush yards per game. Only 16 teams in the nation allow under 100. Both these teams do it. But yeah, I mean, Thompson Robinson and Charbonnet have been so good. I know Bo Nix is improving. I'll wait to see how he does in this big game for them. I don't think it's enough though. The way I'll put it is I think UCLA is pretty much slightly better in almost every skill position. Like if you were to put them head to head, pretty much every skill position, I'm taking UCLA. Thompson Robinson, taking him over Nix. The guy leads the nation in completion percentage, can take off on his feet when he needs to. He's got a good arm. Zach Charbonnet is better than both the Oregon backs right now. Jake Bobo, Tommy mentioned him. I think he's better than Troy Franklin over at Oregon. Then on the defensive side, Latu Latu, I think he's a lot better than DJ Johnson. So when you've got skill guys like that are upper echelon in every category, I think you have to take the team that just has the better talent. So I like UCLA here to win and Chip Kelly to get back at his former employer in the Oregon Ducks. And then in our Chaser slide at 3:30, we have Oklahoma State taking on Texas. Another battle of the oranges here. Ewers is back, boys. He's no longer injured, so we're going to see a full-on game here, full strength from both teams. Tom, we'll start with you. Who's taking it?
I just want to say Spencer Sanders once again went back to the player that we all know he was in last week's game. This Longhorns defense is fierce. They're only giving up 18 points per game. Quinn Ewers is back. Bijan Robinson is an outstanding running back with 780 rushing yards and 10 scores. Xavier Worthy is once again worthy of being mentioned on this card. 6 touchdown receptions on the season, and tight end Jatavion Sanders with 5 touchdown receptions. Those are 2 incredible weapons for Quinn Ewers to deploy. They're favored by 6.5 on the road. That says something. But when I look at Spencer Sanders, all of a sudden he's completing under 60% of his passes again. I mean, this guy's stat line it's fringe. At one moment it's great, and now all of a sudden he has a really, really, really bad game. Right? He was having above average games for the whole year, and he has this one horrible game that makes us think, well, he's pedestrian at best again. I think the one thing that does save him though is he has three receivers with at least three touchdown receptions, and Sanders also has 8 rushing touchdowns. He is a dual threat that's going to be hard for this Longhorns defense to stop. Defensively, what I like about the Cowboys, Brock Martin and Tyler Lacey, they can both get to the quarterback. Quinn Ewers' first game back, that could pose some problems. However, um, when it comes down to a game like this, I like the better coach and I like the better quarterback here. I'm going with Texas.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I think this is going to be interesting. We're talking about an Oklahoma State offense that's putting up 45 points a game, good for fourth in the country, going up against a Texas defense that's only allowing 18. So that'll be my matchup to watch. I love Xavier Worthy on the outside. I think he's one of the best receivers in college football. Interested to see more Ewers and how he looks. Interested to see what Spencer Sanders we're going to get this week. I think Tom put it pretty well. It is very all over the place, the Spencer Sanders experience. I do think Texas. I was kind of thinking they were going to beat Iowa State by a little bit more last week. I can't believe that Iowa State receiver dropped that ball that he would have walked into the end zone on last week. But anyway, I'm going to go with Texas as well. I think this is a shootout. I know Texas only given up 18 points a game, but Oklahoma State just always seems to find their way into the end zone. Will they be able to stop Texas? That is a whole nother question. Just like we saw last week, losing to TCU 43-40. So we will. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but I'm going to go with Texas here.
Yeah, right off the bat, I'm going to Texas as well. It's not quite a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation between having Ewers and not. Hudson Card did good enough for them. They did get the 2 losses though, but Ewers is back and he looks phenomenal. As advertised, pretty much up to this point. And Tom, you said Spencer Sanders has looked above average. Unfortunately, that is not good enough, especially against the Texas defense. Like you said, only 18 ish points per game being allowed. So, they're keeping those points off the board here. Against Texas Tech and TCU, Tom, you said Sanders is getting better. It wasn't just one bad game, it's been 2 in a row here. 44.4 and 48.9 completion percentage with just 2 touchdowns through the air in those games. So he's been having to rely on his legs. And I don't know if that's more of his receivers aren't getting open or if he just doesn't trust his arm anymore. But regardless of the situation, you can't really allow that to happen, especially against a competent defense like Texas, who's probably going to be scoring all game long. I do agree. I think this could go potentially shootout category, but at the very least, I think Texas scores a lot of points here. So you're not going to be able to get it done just on the ground. You need that arm. And as we've discussed, Spencer Sanders and his arm can't quite be trusted at this point in time. So I'm going with the Longhorns here. As we move into our 7:30 slot, we move from the orange to the purple. We have TCU taking on Kansas State, both ranked here again. Tom, who do you like in this one?
Well, this Horned Frogs offense averages nearly 46 points per game, but this Kansas State defense only allows 16.7. So this is going to be very, very interesting. Max Duggan led his team to an impressive overtime victory last week. They're now in the top 10, ranked 8th in the nation, taking on a 17th ranked team who has just 1 loss. And the Horned Frogs are only favored by 3.5 at home. So we know how good Adrian Martinez has been as a runner this year for Kansas State. 9 rushing touchdowns. This is the problem. The Wildcats don't have many receiving weapons. They don't. Uzama has 6.5 sacks. They're good defensively, but so is TCU. I like D. Winters. I love their running back, Kendry Miller, 8 rushing touchdowns. TCU will be a top 5 team in the nation after this week. once they
Ooh,
defeat Kansas State.
ooh, I like that call. Andy, is top 5 TCU taking the win against Kansas State here?
I think they blow Kansas State out, to be honest with you. We're talking about a top 5 offense versus an offense that is ranked 104th for Kansas State. I mean, no disrespect to them, but it's just not even close. So TCU 297 and a half pass yards a game. Uh, that's good for 31st. You have Kansas State, who's 230th in the country with 158. 0.8 yards. I don't know how Kansas State is going to be able to move the ball. That being said, Adrian Martinez has looked impressive so far this year. He's had a couple games where he's stepped up to the spotlight, where it felt like sometimes he was not able to do that at Nebraska. Um, both of these quarterbacks can get it done with their legs. Both of these quarterbacks are able to throw. Max Duggan quite a bit better than Adrian Martinez, but yeah, I'm gonna ride with the Horned Frogs. I'm gonna ride with Max Duggan. I think he has another big game. He's just so hard to stop because he can beat you in so many different ways. But yeah, I'm gonna take TCU.
Yeah, I'm going with the sweep here and taking the Horned Frogs as well. Kansas State, they are coming off a bye week. They got a little bit of rest, but that game before that bye week, a sloppy 10-9 win over Iowa State. Not Iowa, where that would be expected, but Iowa State. So, their offense leaves a little bit to be desired here. TCU's offensive line only allowed 3 sacks in their conference games. So, they're protecting Duggan, and that's what you need to do. The kid's got an arm. Let him use it, and they have been. So I don't think Kansas State's going to be able to get that penetration. They do have quite a good defensive end in Felix Uzamoa, 255-pound junior, tied for the national lead with 1.1 sacks per game. So he could be a factor, but I don't know. TCU's offensive line, I think, can take care of one guy. You double him up. No one else that I could see on the stat sheet has, provided enough backup there for Uzamoa to be a threat, I think, in the trenches. So Adrian Martinez and Deuce Vaughn, they've been incredible together. Love Adrian Martinez. Love what he did to Oklahoma. Love Deuce Vaughn. They're the only quarterback running back combo in the country that both have 500 yards rushing, but I don't think that's enough. Like you guys said, Duggan is an animal. He's killing it through the air. Then you pair him with Keandre Miller. He has rushing touchdowns in every single game so far this season. So that offense is just too potent for me, and I think they take down the Wildcats of Kansas State. Alabama has been relegated to a chaser this week. Secondary game here after that loss. They take on Mississippi State, but they do need this win badly as the SEC race now heats up after that loss to Tennessee. Tom, do you like them to get a little redemption here, get back in their groove, or is Mississippi State giving Saban 2 losses in a row?
Well, Bulldogs QB Will Rogers, as I mentioned earlier, 23 touchdown passes and over 2,300 yards. Caleb Ducking at wide receiver has 7 touchdown hauls on the year. And I love their cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes. He might be one of the most underrated players in the entire nation. 5 interceptions and 7 passes defended through 7 games against SEC caliber level teams. Come on. But we know what Alabama is thriving off of this year. The running game. They average nearly 237 rushing yards per game. Their defense only gives up 18 per game. They're pissed. They're mad. They're coming off a 52-49 loss. Yeah, not good. Bryce Young looking for a bounce back game. Jahmyr Gibbs. I mean, expect him to go off. Ja'Cory Brooks. 4 touchdown receptions. All 3 of Bama's starting linebackers are future NFL players. In fact, out of those 3, Will Anderson Jr. has the least amount of tackles. Fun fact. But they're not covering this 21-point spread. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Will Rogers is really, really good, but Alabama's better. They're winning this football game.
All right, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, this is the tale of a Mike Leach air raid offense going up against a very, very pissed off Nick Saban team. I'm going to give Mississippi State credit. Like Tom said, Will Rogers just slings the absolute piss out of that football. Um, they're averaging 330 pass yards a game. Alabama only giving up 184 through the air defensively. Haven't really gotten beat. Well, actually, they got beat pretty bad through the air by Tennessee last week. But I do think they have a bounce back game here. 21 points does seem like a lot, but then again, it's a pissed off Nick Saban team, and I think a pissed off Nick Saban could lead people to do absolutely anything. So, man, Bryce Young last week was super impressive. Like I talked about earlier, 450 yards. I think Gibbs is ready to eat as well this weekend. I am interested to see, I guess, for the most part, what this Alabama defense looks like. I think Will Anderson Jr. had talked about how out of sync they were last week, and said something just wasn't really feeling right. So if they better get that corrected, and they better get it corrected pretty quick, because this Mississippi State team is capable of putting up some points. But I do like Bama to win the game. 21 is a lot, though. I do think Mississippi State covers.
Yeah, I mean, both you guys just covered pretty much all the points that I like in this game, all stats aside, and that is their ability to bounce back, regardless of all the penalties, which they desperately need to correct. This is still a Saban-led team, and they typically don't lose 2 games in a row. I couldn't even tell you the last 2 games in a row. I think you'd have to go back pretty far for back-to-back regular season losses. The quote that kind of solidified Bama for the win here for me was Will Anderson, despite, like Tom said, his production is a little bit down. Not that he's a bad player or anything, not that he's turned bad, but he's just not producing like last year. But he said, after the game on Saturday, I heard a lot of guys say, we know this feeling, we know how to bounce back. I do think this is the team, maybe the only team in the nation that can correct the ship as quickly as they need to in a 6-day period. So, yeah, it's a massive loss to Tennessee last weekend, but they were a very good team. They showed the nation that. I think Bryce Young may be the most talented quarterback on his feet. I mean, going back to maybe Manziel, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone be able to just escape pressure as easily as him, as often as him. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, has also the most talented feet of any running back in the nation. I think Corum is still probably the best running back in the nation. But my God, that man moves his feet and he breaks ankles every single time he's got the ball. So there's just too much talent there. I think if their defense can just dial it in and be a little bit better than last week, I think they avoid the air raid of Mike Leach's offense. Andy, you're raising your hand.
Who the hell did you just say was the best running back in the country? Because he currently resides in Champaign, Illinois, and his name is Chase Brown. Not no Blake Corum, God damn it. Go on.
All right. I can't believe I dissed Chase Brown like that.
Just want a slap in the face.
I'm sorry. I got caught up in the moment, and the champagne killer just slipped my mind. That being said, I stand by the best feet in the country still remain with Jahmyr Gibbs. So with all the talent, I do think Mississippi State covers the spread here. This is like the Clemson game, way too high for me. So I take Mississippi State there, but I think Alabama does bounce back and win this game. It's going to wrap up our games of the week here. So thank you to everyone for tuning in. Enjoy the games this weekend. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button down below. All of our social media links down in the description. All of Tom and Andy's social media links also down in the description. Thanks for joining us, and we will see everyone next week.